do you want me to give a couple second delay once you let me know when you're up streaming, or just start right away?
Sure, it'll just be one moment here. I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we are live.
All right. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our County Council meeting for July 9th, 2020. And welcome those that are following along live streaming. And again, good morning, Council and staff. So moving forward with our agenda that is published, at this time, I'll ask our Deputy Clerk the roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So it looks like we have all councillors present except for Councillor Desai at this time, but I will keep an eye out for him to see when he joins.
Yes, because yeah, with his notice of motion later as well. So, okay, very good. Then moving forward, then, is there any declaration of pecuniary interest with the members today? All right, if one does arise, you can declare at that time. Moving forward, then I have Councillor Robinson and Councillor Carlton are moving the minutes of June 25th, Council and Committee of the Whole. Is there any discussion in those minutes that wishes to be brought forward? Any errors or omissions? All right, seeing none. Anybody opposed to those minutes? Hearing none, that is carried. All right. And then moving forward then with regards to reports, item 5, we have moved by Councillor Patterson and second by Councillor Hicks, Deputy Warden, the adoption of the Board of Health minutes and to receive for information. And Councillor Patterson, Mayor of Hanover, do you wish to address any of those minutes at all? Or
Dr. Era is present, who
okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Well, I'll go to Dr. Era then if he would like to address those minutes or highlights. Dr.
Good
Era?
morning, Warden. Good morning, Council. The minutes from the previous board meeting, the highlights are the update from the MWH about the recovery from the pandemic, reopening stages. We continue to proceed with safe reopening that is reasonably as fast as we can under the safety condition. The number of cases, the doubling time, all the indicators from epidemiology reflect full control over the outbreak, and the health unit continues to support businesses in ensuring that their reopening is safe in a way that the risk is mitigated. And we prepare for the third stage that should be in near future. From corporate point of view, there were 3 updates noted in the minutes. The one-time funding for the temporary pandemic pay initiative, a letter that came from the ministry outlining that type of funding that some of our staff might qualify for. The second one is extraordinary expenses associated with the COVID-19, and that would be calculated based on the budget, the annual budget. Any expenses beyond the budget that is related to COVID will be covered. And there was another item internally to the health unit to have expenses related to reducing the risk of transmission, workstations and partitions, and there is the need for it, and it just to happen in a short period of time. So the regular policy that we have to recommend for cost and to look for quotes has limited amount of time, so it came to the board for approval. Not a major item, but these are the 3 items. From the health unit, it's worth mentioning that the health unit is preparing for mandating masking or issuing an order, MOH order, that would facilitate this. And there has been communication with the municipalities and the chiefs of police and fire and other relevant stakeholders to ensure that the policy will be proportionate or the order will be proportionate. The estimated time to implement such order, in our opinion, is to be aligned with the reopening stage number 3. And the reasons behind it are a couple folds. We look at 3 major types of input of data. 1, the epidemiology. 2, the compliance from the public with orders in general, and 3, the consistency in the system. So with the epidemiology, there hasn't been much change. As I mentioned, there is full control of the outbreak. The compliance data, there is more indication that the social distancing and social bubble have been not in optimal compliance. So that's expected. Fatigue from the messaging and fatigue from the intervention to be taking place after a few months from the implementation. And that's a reason why we can add the mask in public places as an added layer, not a replacement. And the final set of data is related to consistency with other parts of the system. Other health units have implemented the intervention, whether through a bylaw or an order or a letter based on the current regulations in stage 2. So going forward, that order, the plan is to have, the rough plan is to have an order in place to start with for 4 weeks. And then if the 3rd stage would carry regulations, would allow us to mandate it through a letter, not a bylaw or an order, we would go to the least intrusive, which is a letter. If it doesn't, we would extend the order until a bylaw could be in place, or until further variables in emergency changes that would allow us to rescind the order completely without mandating it. And it's worth mentioning a few points about the implementation of this. It would be in indoors public places where it's traffic and where the public could access the facilities. It's not in the outdoors. And there are a list of exemptions, including many settings that are already regulated, whether it's hospitals, schools, daycare, and others. There should be consideration for medical conditions that prevent people from wearing a mask, whether it's asthma or autism or any other development or disorder would make it intolerable for a person to wear a mask. Those will be built in. The final point I want to mention that there has been discussion among different stakeholders, including with other MOHs, and we're trying to the best of our ability to have consistency across the province. It goes without mentioning consistency is valuable and building, ensuring trust from the system, from the public into the system and different organizations of the establishment. And that's my update, Mr. Chair. Open for questions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Era, and thank you for your very thorough discussion about your points there. Are there any discussion or any questions to Dr. Era from County Council?
Warden McQueen, I have one.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor Patterson, and then Councillor Mackey, I think, is next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, Dr. Era, for the update. And I think everyone will remember that during our conversation, our discussions with Dr. Era, we were speaking about an upper tier bylaw with Bruce and Grey counties. And I'm wondering, do we need a motion or just a recommendation that we ask staff to bring a report back about what that bylaw would entail? There are lots of municipalities working on it right now, and staff, maybe Kim, you'd like to speak to that, but I think it'd be appropriate to have a report so that we are consistent throughout Grey and Bruce, and it would make it a lot easier for all our residents, let alone all of our councils.
Thank you for that. Madam CEO, do you have a comment there, or Dr. Era?
Working in collaboration with our solicitor, Michael Letourneau. I think certainly that's something that staff would be more than happy to undertake, but I'll take my direction on this from Dr. Era with regard to timing and content. Dr. Era is starting to work on a draft bylaw and bringing a report back with those considerations about content and enforcement considerations, et cetera. Is that something that you're looking for us to undertake?
Dr. Era?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Definitely, that's highly recommended advice to start working on it. Again, we hope for the best, prepare for the worst. If the third stage would carry a regulation that would allow us to issue a letter of strong recommendation based on the regulation, that a bylaw might not be needed. However, if those regulations are not there or happen to change halfway in the third stage, it's prudent to have a bylaw in place or the preparation for it ready to be passed ahead of time. So I strongly recommend this, and I've been working with Michael on aligning both the order and the potential bylaw to have seamless transition if the need be.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Era. I know I did see a draft last night. I took a read through it. And Councillor Patterson, do you have any follow-up on that?
No, just whether we need a recommendation or an actual motion. Either way, I can move it, or staff is aware we need a report.
Well, certainly it's probably good to have it in play if we need it for sure. Madam CEO or Madam Deputy Clerk, what would you wish?
If we could have a formal resolution at this time, that would be in order for staff to bring back a report to the next committee of the whole meeting, incorporating the information that Dr. Era has provided.
Okay, so Councillor Patterson is moving that. Do I have a
Sorry,
seconder?
Warden. Sorry,
Yes.
Warden.
Yes.
We do have the Board of Health minutes and report on the floor
Oh,
already.
yes. Yes.
So we
yes,
can
we're
bring
gonna
that
get it.
forward after.
Yes. Yes. I apologize. Thanks for keeping me online here, Deputy Clerk. So I think we'll go back to you, Sue, on that. But I think Councillor Mackey had a question next, I think. Go ahead, Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Thanks, Dr. for your update. Just in regards of if the order, when the order is issued by the health unit, people with health conditions that aren't able to wear a mask, what proof will they have to provide that they have a health condition?
So only it would be a good faith policy where they would just declare that I cannot tolerate it for a condition. There's in the planning, we considered having something similar to the seat belt law, where a note would be provided from a healthcare provider. However, this might entail overburdening the healthcare system in 2 or 3 weeks after issuing the order with requests from many people or a number of people for notes. And again, the underlying principle with this order is to ensure the behavior of wearing a mask is introduced into the society and normalize it to a certain degree. If we think of analogy, it would be the helmet used for riding a bicycle. There is a law, but it's far in between when you would find somebody's actually enforcing it or writing a ticket for it. People police themselves. The society learns from setting that limit to understand that this is something useful, helpful, and hopefully with education and that awareness, the goal would be achieved by increasing the proportion of people who are using masks. The goal is not to penalize people or to have heavy enforcement. And that circles back to your question. The burden of proof is minimal. It's just declaration that I have a health condition prevent me from using it.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that, Mackey. Any other questions with regards to the minutes that are there? All right, anybody opposed to those set of minutes? Okay, that is carried. So going back to your motion, Councillor Patterson, so you so move that. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I'm looking at my screen here. I see Councillor Burley. Okay, that's on the floor. Discussions, any further comments, Councillor Patterson, before I go to further discussion? Hearing none. Other comments? So this is to bring back a report. Is I guess everybody understands the motion that's on the floor. I know Councillor Patterson, I think you made a comment a few weeks back that we should just automatically be wearing masks when we're in those locations, and I think we probably all agreed to that. All right, so that is anybody opposed to that motion? Okay, that is carried. I see Councillor Desai is with us, so I think we have a full complement of county councillors now. There is a bylaw that's in front of us, and this is bylaw 508920 for the Markdale Hospital, and it's moved by Councillor Mackey and second by Councillor Millen. Discussion on that, or sorry, Madam CEO, do you wish to make any comments to that?
Unmute myself. There we are. Thank you, Mr. Warden. I think this is actually a really positive day for Grey County and for Grey Bruce Health Services. It's been a long time, and a lot of work and a lot of support has gone into making this transfer possible. I think that the hospital is working closely with the province and looking forward to being able to move forward with the next phase in the approval process for the new hospital in Markdale. This is critical, and I really want to thank Randy and his team and the people at the hospital for working so well together to iron out the myriad of details that it took to bring us to here. So well done, everyone.
Well, thank you, Madam CEO. And just to echo your comments that, yeah, this has been quite an experience, to say the least, and we're moving forward. And I'm glad to see Councillor Millen as the seconder of this bylaw. Thanks for that. And certainly a very aggressive time frame that's in play. I know you and I met with Gary Sims last week or the week before, along with other stakeholders, and very positive moving forward. Grey Highlands is moving forward with the site plan as well to move this project on to the next stage for sure. Questions from county councillors? Thanks, Kim. Any questions? Councillor Mill.
The question I had was, and it refers back to the original bylaw from 2005. The value of the lands is to be determined by an appraiser at the time of the land transfer. When was the appraisal done, and who was the appraiser?
Madam CEO.
Randy will speak to that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the appraisal was done in 2015. It was done by Dale Mitchell, local land appraiser that we've utilized for other appraisals in the past. We recognize that it's sometimes been it's been about 5 years, obviously, from the last appraisal. In saying that, there are lands on the site that are contaminated, and the price to be able to remediate some of those lands has also gone up in value. So that was a definite factor in the appraised value at the time. I think at the time the appraised value was around 400,000 for the land, but that was reduced by the cost to remediate some of the contaminated lands. So we think that although the land value prices have increased, obviously in the last 5 years, also the price to remediate some of the contaminated soils has increased. So we think at the end of the day, it's likely a wash. So at this time, staff are comfortable to proceed with the appraised value minus the cost of the land contamination factored in as part of that analysis.
Thanks, Randy. Any follow-up, Councillor Millen?
Yeah, so to clarify then, has the contamination been dealt with yet?
Randy?
It has not been, so that in the agreement, it indicates that Graybridge Health Services would be responsible for the cost to remediate that. So that's been built in as part of the agreement. And that's part of some of the work that they want to get going in terms of late summer, early fall, doing some initial site prep work so that they can get going with construction. So this, as Kim indicated, is a critical piece. It gets us one step further and closer to actually get the lands in the hands of Graybridge Health Services. So that Grey Highlands, as Warden McQueen indicated, can issue the site plan approval and then get the building permits in hand so they can start construction.
Okay,
Right.
Thank you very much. So then if I might, Mr. Warden,
Go ahead.
so the balance of the $1 million would be payable at the time when construction starts, or when would that piece be triggered?
So I know Randy or Madam CEO.
Yeah, so the conditions in the agreement indicate that it would be at the funds have been placed in reserve. So we have those currently in reserve, and they'd be transferred to Graybridge Health Services upon the latter of the date of the latest building permit or the date upon which Graybridge Health Services receives all necessary approvals for the hospital. So the agreement speaks to the timing of when those funds would be released. And the $780,000 would also be minus any costs related to survey work, because there's been significant survey work that's been part of the challenge and delay to get it to this stage, as well as any work with respect to the property appraisal that was done previously.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions, Brian. And any other questions from county councillors? All right. Any opposed to this resolution? Hearing none, that is carried. Okay. So we certainly look for that opportunity to do the sod turning later on this year. Hopefully everything will move forward. And as Madam CEO and Randy has said, is, you know, that site preparation and all those things are definitely in need of. And I think there might be maybe remnants of the old home somewhere there. I'm not sure, but anyway, we'll leave it at that and move on. So good news and celebrations. So last couple times there has been a list provided, but I've made my own list. So I'm going to go around and this time I think last time West Grey was last, so I'm going to go with West Grey first. So Christine and Tom, I'm going to go with you guys first.
Sure. Well, good morning, Warden, and good morning, everyone. I would just like to say and encourage everyone to shop local, support local, and while observing all of the COVID-19 protocols. Thank you very much. Looking forward to Committee of the Whole after this.
Thank you, Mayor Robinson and Councillor Hutchinson. Anything to add?
Morning, Warden and County Council. No, the only thing I could say is just looked at the weather this morning. We do have some rain coming, so I think that's the good news that I'd like to share. So, thank you.
Well, it depends if you're a hay farmer.
Well, I got lots of guys that are looking for the rain, so bring it on.
We do need the rain, but we got about an inch of rain here 2 days ago. So just a big 15-20 minute downpour. So it's
We've
just,
had nothing down here at all, nothing at all. So I know around us is getting a little bit, but yeah, we desperately need a little bit. Anyway, thank you.
For the crops. Thanks for the reminder. And next I'll go to Owen Sound. Mayor Body.
Really nothing to add. Some of us are getting our beards trimmed on Saturday, raising money for the hospital for gloves and masks and things. So that's oshfoundation.ca/beards, but nothing really else to report. It's hot. Thanks.
You look pretty dapper there, Mayor Body. I must say, you got that waxed mustache there, and looks good. Looks good.
It's just grease from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Well, whatever works. You might want to get that cleaned up before Saturday, but anyway. Councillor O'Leary.
Nothing, Mr. Warden. Good morning, everyone.
Are you out golfing yet?
A whole bunch, and I will be by noon today too, I think, won't I?
You absolutely will be. All right, so we're going to move over to Blue Mountain this time. And Mayor Soever.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just like to report that the virtual Canada Day celebration, which was organized by Collingwood, the resort and the town of Blue Mountains, was a big success. A lot of local entertainers. They visited a lot of local establishments like the Spy Cidery and Smitty's Bike Shop, who gave excellent infomercials about what you can purchase there. So it was good for promoting local business. And I'd also like to mention that our grants and donations program is going well. The Community Challenge distributed $7,000, $3,500 to the BVO meal program and $3,500 to the Anglican Church meal program, which is organized by Chef Jean Knight. And there's still another $8,000 in the treasury. People have continued to donate to that. And so there is money for community projects in our grants and donations program. And to supplement the coffers, the grants and donations program, together with the Legion, the Marsh Street Center and the BVO, we're doing a drive-by Lobster Fest on July 25th. So anybody can drive by and pick up a lobster dinner, or if you're not into lobster, there's also the choice of chicken. And that is going to be a fundraiser, which will be a bit different than the old Lobster Fest, but you can certainly do a drive-by Lobster Fest. That's all I have.
Can we place our orders with you to pick it up for us?
We can certainly do that.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. Oh, Mayor Soever.
We'll deliver the lobster if you provide the refreshments when we get there.
Oh, well, I guess we could work at that for sure. Now, Mayor Soever, you were fortunate to get in with the Premier yesterday. You going to mention that?
Oh yeah, well, that was another good news story. We have had a lot of visitors from the city, and it's caused an issue at our beaches. So we're in the process of hiring another 6 to 8 bylaw officers, which will bring our complement to 13. They'll be out giving people advice on social distancing and controlling parking on the beaches. And one of the issues that we've had is the lack of beach space and the speed on Highway 26. So the Premier did promise that he would respond to my letter, which I sent him a few days ago, but I was able to get in on the call, and we will be reducing, he said they will be reducing the speed limit through Craigleith on Highway 26 to 50, because there are a lot of people walking across the highway and people turning in and out of beach accesses, and it is a dangerous spot. There was one motor vehicle accident on the weekend. There was an infant involved. Fortunately, nobody got hurt, but it is an issue. So the speed limit on 26 will be slowing down. So anybody going towards Collingwood, please use an alternate route so you don't get frustrated by the slower speed limit.
Yeah, and the Premier promised you his cell number as well. So
yeah,
we'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor Soever. Councillor Potter, do you have anything to add?
The mayor kind of took what I was going to talk about, the Lobster Fest dinner. I'm not sure I would trust the mayor to deliver my dinner intact, so you can take your chance there. But the other thing I would mention is that our library and the Craigleith Heritage Depot both continue to have their online programs going on, which are for people of all ages. So just go to the website at Blue Mountains Public Library, and there'll be lots of things going on pretty much every day, some sort of activity online.
Okay, well, thanks, Councillor Potter. Now we'll move over to Meaford and Mayor Klumpus. Sure.
Unmute myself. Good morning, everyone. Thanks. Just to report that, like everyone, we are finding some challenges with this extra hot weather. Our limited beaches are pretty full, although people are being very respectful. I'm noticing a lot more masks being worn, which is a good thing. As always, we're noticing a few more faces than usual, new faces in our community. And some issues are happening in Memorial Park, which has just opened. And we are going to have to be looking at increased bylaw officers for that as well. So it's we're moving along and enjoying the summer. And hopefully we'll be getting a stronger message out about wearing face masks and being respectful of public property and each other. I don't have anything more to say except wish everybody a nice day, weekend, and thank you.
Well, thanks, Mayor Barb Klumpus, and Councillor Keaveney. Do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and good morning, everyone. Yes, just a couple of things from our recovery task force. Just to mention to everyone that our restaurant patios are open and they look great and they're busy, and that's bringing a little bit of a hub of activity to our downtown. Another initiative of our task force is we're taking the empty storefronts and having the windows cleaned and sidewalks swept by community living, and we're going to display artwork in those windows, again, just to keep the downtown looking just a little more vibrant. And recognizing that masks are becoming mandatory, and also knowing that perhaps they may be more difficult to acquire. So we do have 365 Sports in Meaford that is a distributor for PPE. So if any of the lower tiers are in need of masks, reach out to me and I'll get you the contact for 365 and they can be a supplier. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keavy, and I'm sure ice cream's flying off your counter before it melts.
Oh, it is indeed.
All right, so I'm going to go to, thank you for that. I'm going to go to Southgate and Mayor Woodbury.
Thank you. As usual, it's everything's really good in Southgate. The weather's perfect, and our beaches aren't overcrowded here. Well, we do have a beach, but yeah, I haven't been there. So things are going well, and according to my wife, the good news is Saturday with the beards getting shaved. So we'll. I may even wear a tie to the next meeting just to confuse everybody. Clean shaven tie. So Joy, we're seeing a lot of innovation, a lot of people adapting to what's going on in the businesses, and it's really encouraging. So that's Southgate, but Brian probably knows more.
Well, thanks, Mayor Woodbury, and your wife will get a new man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the neighborhood won't know who you are.
Will the beard be back in time for Christmas? It won't be the same without Santa Claus at council table.
Well, like I said, we could do this again in November for me, so it's okay.
Right. Yeah. As soon as you get that shaved off, the temperature will drop 10 degrees. So, okay, thank you for that. And Councillor Millen.
Nothing to add other living the dream down here in Southgate, waiting for O'Leary to invite me for a round of golf.
Just be careful, you might need your armor. I will say, Councillor Millen, you win the prize next to Councillor Gamble for the best backdrop, I must say. All right, so now we're going to go to Georgian Bluffs and Mayor Burley.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. We in Georgian Bluffs are very excited about our new CEO starting very soon. We get to meet him face-to-face Friday morning. It was a different process for us. Everything video, all our interviews, extremely different. It is great. We're all excited about John Norton coming to join Georgian Bluffs. And I want to send out a special thank you to Anne-Marie Shaw for all her expertise helping us through these trying times until we had our new CEO in place. And just a special thank you to her. She's done a tremendous job. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Burley, and from County Council and myself as a warden, send all our best to your new warden. And again, thanks, Anne-Marie, for taking on this extra duty. Okay, and Councillor Carlton, do you have anything to add? Councillor Carlton?
I'm here. Sorry. Yes, I too agree with Mayor Burley. We're quite excited, looking forward to John Norton coming. And thank you to Anne Marie for everything that she's done for us. I would also comment that Georgian Bluffs is under a total burn ban. I can't believe anyone would actually want to light a fire in this weather, but it's a complete burn ban. And we have 2 patios open, one at Elsie's and the other at the airport that I can't believe the mayor missed mentioning. So that's what's new in Georgian Bluffs today.
Okay, well, holy smokes, Councillor Carlton, maybe he's keeping that patio to himself. Maybe he'll offer that when he gets his lobster dinner delivered. So there we go. Okay, well, thank you for that. And now we'll move over to Hanover and Mayor Patterson.
Thank you, Warden McQueen. Good morning, everyone. Still living the dream in Hanover. It must be the southern municipalities of Gray that live the dream. I just want to brag a little bit. Our Canada Day virtual presentation was spectacular, and the many online and offline events, such as the most patriotic decorating challenge and the scavenger hunt, were a blast. And I thoroughly enjoyed judging the houses and the businesses. I thought maybe there might be a dozen, so not a big job. 29 houses and 9 businesses. So it was great. It made me feel really proud to be Canadian, and so very proud of everyone in Hanover showing their Hanover spirit. That's it for Hanover. Thank you.
From the southern parts of Grey County, thank you, Mayor Patterson, and Councillor Hicks, Deputy Warden. Welcome.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Warden. So the mayor was judging, and my homes was one of the homes in the 27. And hey, what happened? I thought I had an in with the mayor. Apparently not. My wife is really looking forward to getting rid of this thing on Saturday. So I urge everyone, I'm competitive too. I want to win. I want to have the most donations if possible. So please visit oshfoundation.ca/beards and sponsor, but especially sponsor me. I also want to say that I'm really excited because at the beginning of the year, I was really trying to get one of those sites at Memorial Park because they're very difficult to get. So I sent away my application, I got back, we did get a space, and then COVID happened. So then I lost my space. But in the last week, I went to their website, and out of the blue, one of the most perfect sites was available for the dates that I needed. And so I will be going to Memorial Park. And so I'm really, really looking forward to spending some time at Memorial Park. That's it for me, Mr. Warden.
Well, thank you, Councillor Hicks, Deputy Warden. And maybe you guys have to do the commercial with Kentucky Fried Chicken to edge out everybody. All right. Well, thank you for that. And moving on then to Chatsworth and Mayor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Morning, Council. Not a lot to report from the Township of Chatsworth. I hope our friends in the southern municipalities that are dreaming are not delusional. But things continue to roll along. Lots of traffic on Highway 6 and 10. People coming up from the GTA, so that has its pros and cons. Good for tourism, maybe not so good for COVID, but we are looking forward to a rain this afternoon. Unlike Grey Highlands, all the good farmers in Chatsworth have their hay all off, and it's nicely stored away. Take care, everyone.
Well, thank you, Mayor Mackey, and yes, that's good that your farmers are ahead of the times. Councillor Gamble.
Yes, good morning, Warden McQueen and Council. We have a kind of a good news story in Chatsworth. We have a pharmacy opening up where the bank used to be. So that's an added feature we're looking forward to. And a new service station in the future. And contrary to what my mayor just said, we're in the second cut hay, and we do need the rain, and I hope we do get it. That's pretty well my version.
I would think the corn likes this heat though, right? Just needs a bit of drink probably.
That's great.
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Gamble. And last but not least, we'll move on to Grey Highlands and a cash. Deputy Warden.
Thank you
Deputy
very
Mayor.
much, Mr. Warden, for saving the best for the last. I'd like to point out, I was a little surprised with Chatsworth's treatment of Grey Highlands and their farmers. I was not expecting that, so I don't have a rebuttal for that. But I would like for Councillor Mackey to know that you know, in Grey Highlands you've got the best farmers. We're going to plant all the crops, and we're going to make I'll pick Town of Blue Mountains. We're going to make them pay for it. On a different note, I would also like to point out that I'm also one of the people shaving my beards, whatever you call this now, on Saturday. But 3 weeks ago or so, I did email Councillor Body and say, is that still happening or not? My beard's getting itchy and I can't do it anymore. It's getting hot. And he said, oh, yeah, I don't think it's happening. Shave it off. I shaved it off, and then would you know it, 2 days later, it's on again. So this is 3 weeks worth. So I do hope, instead of Councillor Body or Councillor Hicks, you would go and sponsor me. Councillor Hicks has provided the link, or of course Councillor Woodbury. But you know, I will miss that Santa Claus beard there.
I've got the most to lose.
Also, Councillor Dodd from Owen Sound. I think any money donated towards this campaign would not be wasted. That beard needs to go. On a bit more of a serious note, this Saturday we're having the 150th commemoration of the lynching of William Luke, and there were 7 other Black men who were lynched with him in Alabama. The reason it's significant is Mr. William Luke was from the Flashton area, and he was a Black man who went down to Alabama to teach Black men how to read and write and so on. It's going to be a very small gathering, keeping COVID in mind. It's going to be a very solemn gathering as well. There's a few articles that Mr. Butler, who's the resident historical expert in Grey Highlands, had sent to us, which I'll be forwarding on to the rest of council. It's a moving story, and very poignant in the times that we live in today. I know the videographer from the Grey Highlands Public Library will be filming it, so hopefully you guys will virtually attend it once the video is up on social media. Thank you very much, Mr. Warden.
Well, thank you, Councillor Desai and Deputy Mayor. And yes, that will be a very important event this Saturday morning. I think it's 11 o'clock at the pavilion at the Southeast Grey Museum. I just want to say a few things in the sense of, I did a warden's address on July 1st under my front porch of my farmhouse. My lovely wife was videoing me, and we forward that on to for a virtual Canada Day address from myself on behalf of all County Council. Hope you're able to see that. Certainly we have a group, a Kinsman group, are looking at trying to organize a drive-in movie at one of our facilities, and just going through the process of working at that. And just in the sense that I understand, yesterday there was a great meeting with the community and stakeholders with regards to the Eugenia Falls and how to move forward with regards to implementing sort of a new mandate with regards to that area. So that's all I have to bring. And I just want to say to Councillor Woodbury, you got that ZZ Top look. If anybody knows the ZZ Top. So Madam CAO, do you have any good news and celebrations from County Council or staff, or anything that you wish to address before we move on?
I think the one thing I'd like to share with council, and again, I think we're all missing having you here in the building. A shout out to our new health and safety manager, Janice, as well as Anne Marie and her staff. Everyone really working together on the new policies and procedures and retrofitting this building to make things as safe as they can be for staff to begin to come back and work in the building starting on Monday. So we're going to be doing that in a couple of cohorts. So about 50% of people will be back on Monday. We remain closed to the public for right now and continuing with our virtual service provision, with the exception of the Provincial Offences Court, who will be on an appointment basis open to the public who need to complete some paperwork in a face-to-face manner. So slowly we ease back into our operations and opening up the building, but an awful lot of work has gone into this, and we're really hopeful that we've met the standard and we'll be able to keep everybody safe.
Well, thank you, Madam CEO, and certainly the province is moving forward on their phases, and I think there was an announcement yesterday, some changes to the POA and a number of things. And there was us mayors were on a call, or were invited to be on a call yesterday with Minister Clark, along with the Premier that Mayor Sullivan was speaking about, and it was a good opportunity to listen to what they're, and it came out today with regards to their bill that they're moving out with some major changes. It is interesting that they are looking at permanently allowing councils to do what we're doing right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and having that, and also I thought it was interesting with the proxy vote. I wasn't sure where that came from, but the ability from another councillor to vote for somebody on council, I thought that was interesting through a proxy, and they talk about DC charges. So certainly I would say that's probably going to be setting us up for AMO and a lot of probably dialogue on those items that they are bringing forward. And I know AMO has sent out last night, I was reading, where they have made comments to certain sections of their changes. So
I think, Mr. Warren, if I may, that we'll be digesting the assessment of that, of all of the different things that are in that omnibus bill, and the guidance from AMO and from our various associations in that, and likely bringing back a staff report for all of you that really speaks to the parts of this that are very, going to have specific implications for Grey County.
Absolutely. So, okay, well, thank you, everyone, and good discussion. And it's always good to hear all the great things that are happening out there. So I do have a motion by Councillor Burley and second by Councillor Millen that we adjourn. Anybody opposed to that? That is carried. Okay, so now we'll move over to our committee of the whole, and we'll shuffle our papers here for a second. All right, so I'm going to call now the meeting of the committee of the whole to order. As what time are we here? 10:18, just for the record. So it's called to order. And is there any declaration of pecuniary interest with regards to the committee whole agenda for county councillors? All right, if one does arise, you can declare at that time. So moving on to then with regards to business arising from the minutes, this is with regards to a notice of motion that is put on the floor, and that is moved by Councillor Desai and second by Councillor Millen. And so Councillor Desai, I will give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. It's a pretty straightforward motion. Increasingly, we're seeing in our world today that young people are taking charge and are moving things forward, or taking an increased interest in the community around them. And also, I think it's the way forward. We need, in Grey County, we need to get younger people involved in not just municipal politics, and not just in politics, but in community building. Sorry, I drank coffee a little too quick there. And the other thing is also with attracting new immigrants to our community. We've seen in Owen Sound recently with the appointment of Waleed Sheikh to the Downtown Association. I think it's the way forward, and while I think that it would be wise to have a committee around it, I think it's also wise to know what staff is already doing right now on that front. We've seen a couple of reports with regards to attracting new immigrants to our area come recently pre-COVID, and so I think it's important to know what staff are doing currently before we go ahead and ask for a committee on that. So that's what the motion is around, and I hope I can get support on that.
Well, thank you, Councillor Desai. And I think just as a side, you instrumental along with others, Rotarac, a youth part of Rotary. And so I know you've been working with regards to other youth initiatives like that. Okay, Councillor Millen, do you have anything to add as a seconder?
Simply to say that I support the resolution wholeheartedly. Obviously, I do appreciate Councillor Desai's work on the resolution, and I would encourage councillors to support this, because if nothing else, I think it would be a good reminder of the many and varied work that is going on in the county at this time.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Councillor Millen. Okay, so Councillor Keaveney, you wish to speak next, is what I see on my screen, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And yes, I just want to express my complete support for this motion. I think at this point in time, there's a great opportunity for Grey County to reach out and attract immigrants to Grey and young families to Grey, recognizing that I feel that people are going to be wanting to get out of the city and get up into an environment that they feel is safer for themselves and their families. And I think through the work that county staff are already doing, and potentially a committee, that we can be ahead of the pack in encouraging those young entrepreneurs to choose Grey. And I also think it won't be too long until we be back into a position of low unemployment. And I think it behooves us to get ahead of the curve as well, and to prepare ourselves with the opportunity here to be ready to attract that workforce and those families to Grey County. So well done, Akash.
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Keaveney, and I think I have Councillor Carleton next. Is that correct, Councillor Carleton?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. I too fully support the motion going forward. I just have one comment on it. I note that it seems to strictly reference youth, but we're also talking about immigrants, which are important. So perhaps we need to add that wording to the motion. And I would also comment that Y Employment Services do work with attracting immigrants. And I know this because it's my daughter-in-law that actually runs that program at the Y. So that would be a good one to include in anything we do going forward. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carleton. Anybody else wish to speak? I'm looking at my screen here.
Can I respond to Councillor Carleton on that comment?
Go ahead, Councillor Desai.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So I think the immigrant population was captured in the word diversity. Having said that, if we would like to provide more clarity and explicitly use the word new immigrants, I'm more than happy to amend that, or a friendly amendment, or however that would work.
Okay, Tara?
We can just do that as a friendly amendment, and it will be incorporated into the staff report as well.
Okay, Councillor Millen, you're okay with that slight change? Councillor Millen, you're okay with that slight change?
Yeah, I'm good. Yep.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see it. Maybe you were giving me a thumbs up there. Okay, other comments to this notice of motion? I know that with regards to our attainable housing committee that we had set up and want to get going, I think personally myself as the warden, I think there's great opportunity for young people in Grey County and surrounding areas with regards to, we know internet is much better than it has been, and we know we found that through our COVID-19 experience. Also with regards to cost of housing, and also every election we always hear is how do we keep our young people home? So we got to create those opportunities. So I think, you know, moving forward, and I've been saying this, that we need to grow Grey County because I think it's a great opportunity for millennials, especially for that cohort to be able to, you know, get a job, live here, raise a family, and all that type of thing. So I know part of our job as county councillors, I think, is to create those opportunities and move forward on that part. So very good. So last call for any last comments? All right, so again, that was moved by Councillor Desai and second by Councillor Millen. Is there anybody opposed to this notice of motion? All right, seeing none, that is carried. Okay, so we'll look forward to that coming back in a report. So moving forward then, we have a few items here that are in consent agenda. Are there any of those items that wish to be pulled for separate discussion?
Mr. Chair, it's Christine Robinson.
Councillor Robinson, go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, I would like to pull item 5A, please.
Okay, I made note here that'll be addressed at a later part of the agenda. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any of A, B, and C? Are there any of those other items which to be pulled? Okay, so seeing none, and so I have moved by Councillor Potter and second by Councillor Robinson, yourself, the moving, I guess, items B and C. Any further, just so there's no discussion on that. So anybody opposed to those being supported? Okay, that is carried. All right. So then moving on to items of discussion. This is item 6A. And this is with regards to a report for the growth, and it's moved by Councillor Patterson and second by Councillor Potter. And Randy, do you wish to address this?
Yeah, I'll just introduce this report, and then Scott's going to provide the details of the presentation of it. This is with respect to some recent changes to the provincial policy statement that extended the growth horizon. And so we're looking to take advantage of that increased growth horizon from 25 years, or from 20 years to 25 years. And so this is what this report is primarily all about. And Scott's going to provide some details with respect to what we're proposing with respect to that.
Okay, well, thanks, Randy. And Scott, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks, Warden McQueen, and good morning to you and members of County Council. So as Randy mentioned, there was a change made to the provincial policy statement, and this was outlined in a report to the Committee of the Whole on May the 28th, and we had flagged to Council at that time that there would be a future staff report coming on this matter. One of the key issues here is that now that we're given the ability to plan for 25 years, we can look at amending our official plans and our growth projections and allocations in that regard. And I know that on the heels of the county's new Recolor Gray official plan, there are a number of municipalities that are looking at undertaking 5-year reviews of their official plans, and some have already started. In this regard, however, we have been notified by the province that municipal official plans still need to conform to the upper tier official plan. And therefore, because the county's official plan has a time horizon to the year 2038, based on the work that was done in our 2018 growth management strategy, new municipal official plans or updated municipal official plans would be limited to this 2038 deadline. As such, as Randy noted, staff are recommending that we look at a small update to our growth management strategy, which would look at both residential and employment projections, as well as the allocations of that growth out to each of our 9 member municipalities, such that we can extend that time horizon from the 2038 currently in our plan to, well, if it was approved this year, it would be 2045, of course, to meet that 25-year deadline. There is a requirement in the provincial policy statement which requires upper tiers to both do these population and employment projections, as well as allocate that growth out to our member municipalities. So that's where we're taking our direction from. Staff see this as an update and a great opportunity to check in with each of our 9 municipalities to see what's going on in their neck of the woods, so to speak, and to capture the most recent growth. And I know we have been seeing growth in all our municipalities. So it would be a good time to update those numbers from the work that was done in 2018. And we would certainly look to build off the excellent work that's already being done by municipal staff. And in some cases, municipalities have already hired consultants to look at their growth and what that means to each of their own municipalities as well. It should be noted that by extending this horizon out to 25 years, it may mean that some of our settlement areas no longer have enough lands designated to meet their growth needs for the 25 years. As such, it could trigger municipal comprehensive reviews being done as part of your own municipal official plan update processes. And certainly the county would work with municipal staff to supply as much as we could in terms of data for those processes. And then we would look to see further updates to the county official plan at that stage once those detailed municipal studies had been done. Staff are recommending that we go out to market for this update to the growth management strategy. We think $25,000 will be sufficient, and these monies will come from the planning ArcGIS reserve, so they won't come from the levy in that regard. We would further note that as part of the motion, we are seeking to not only update the growth management strategy, but then come forward with a county official plan amendment to implement the findings of that strategy, as well as addressing any further housekeeping matters to the county plan. So that's all I have at this stage, but certainly be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And I know we just have a new provincial policy that was just brought forward this year. Just a question before I go to others. Do you feel, and I was on the call yesterday with the Premier and Minister Clark, but I wasn't as lucky as Mayor Soever to get in there. But I want to ask a question sometime to Minister Clark. With the changes to COVID-19 and with changes with internet and stuff, are we going to see an uptake in growth in Grey County? For the simple reason is the open space with COVID-19. It's a whole different game changer now with regards to density. I know that the province has very much been supporting density and for the places to grow and more people and less in small spaces. Do you think that direction is going to maybe change a little bit from a provincial perspective? And it may just happen on its own, just from the sense of migration changes from the general population. So I just wondered if you have any comments there.
Yeah, it's a great question and some good thoughts, Warden McQueen. It's certainly something that planning staff have been monitoring, and it's something that if this motion is supported, we would look to discuss with that future consultant. Anecdotally, and from different planners across the province, we're hearing different things. There are some predicting urban flight, but we also had the opportunity to sit in on a recent webinar put on by the Ontario Professional Planners Institute, which presented research looking at COVID infection rates and noting that the infection rates across the province and across large parts of North America, in fact, aren't necessarily directly tied to those areas with highest density. That said, that's research of a few people in this regard, and at this time, and we certainly look to see what further comes out as this pandemic goes on and comes to an end, and like I said, discussing it with the future consultant in that regard as well.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And it's funny, I just heard this past week that real estate values in Toronto have gone up even still during this COVID-19. It's still like real estate values keep driving up. And so that's a bit of a, from affordability side, talking about youth and that type of thing. Well, thank you for that. So I got a couple of people that are wishing to speak, and I have Councillor Deputy or Mayor Lar, and then I have Councillor Robinson. So go ahead, Councillor Lar.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. Certainly, I am concerned, that when we do this management study, we're going into it without actually having seen the effects of changes in demographics and where people want to live post-COVID. I know that at our recovery task force meeting yesterday, one of the real estate agents who sits on that said right now he has 7 families with kids looking for homes in the town of Blue Mountains that they're going to be relocating from the urban centers up here. And certainly I know that we're going to be particularly impacted. Right now, we already have half of our residences in the town of Blue Mountains are not normally occupied based on our water consumption and our waste disposal, the amount of garbage we're picking up. We know that there's a lot of people here. I would estimate between 30 and 50% of the homes that aren't normally occupied are now normally occupied, at least for this period. And what I can see is that with companies being far more flexible for allowing people to work from home, that instead of people being in the city for 5 days and up here for 2 days in their second home, they'll be here for 5 days and in the city for 2 days. And so that has huge implications for our growth management strategy. If people are going to be behaving and living differently, you know, I'm just worried we hurry and go into this based on consultants without actually having an opportunity to observe what is actually going to happen. And I think certainly we should get started on this, but we should probably recognize that we don't yet have the data available to know what the impacts of the post-COVID environment are going to be. I know that, you know, even working from home is going to mean that a lot of people are going to make this their primary residence, and it will have completely different implications for our needs for infrastructure. We were actually able to lower our water and wastewater rates by 5% because we've been collecting too much money because our consumption has gone up that much. So there will be things like this that will be going on, and I think we need to really at least recognize this and take that into account for any long-term growth management strategy.
Well, too much money. We all wish we had too much money.
Well, no, just in water and wastewater. We can't dip into that though.
No, I realize that. You base it on volume, and your volume is way up, so you have to reset the rates for sure. Thanks, Mayor Schweber, and Councillor Robinson. I think you were next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. I certainly look at this this report as a well-needed update to growth and just emphasizing the fact that Grey County as a whole is growing. I certainly would appreciate that county staff, as always, in the building department and related departments that are looking at this study, connect with the lower tiers. I note in the recommendation that's taking place, but it's important to look at the uniqueness of each of our communities and how that also fits in and represents Grey County as a whole. Certainly, we at West Grey are currently doing an official plan review and also looking in parallel with our zoning amendment. So FYI, I know planning staff are aware of that. I like the connection with the upper and lower tier, and looking forward to the overall report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Robinson. Are there any other comments from county councillors or staff?
Warden, we have questions from Councillor Body and Councillor Potter.
Okay, Councillor, go ahead, Councillor Body, Mayor Body.
Yeah, thank you, Warden Hicks. I'm surprised that this is coming so quickly. We just did our official plan not that long ago. Our last growth plan is only 2 years old. We have planned out for 2 years, and you know, we're going to be redoing the official plan update in probably we're down to 4 years when we start that again, which would allow us to extend then. So I'm surprised this is happening already. I'm surprised that we're talking about changing some of the boundaries on our growth areas. One of the things, you know, a whole bunch of us at lower tiers, not including Owen Sound, oddly enough, have declared climate emergencies. And that's going to be huge as we're looking at cars and transportations, small areas of subdivisions where there's no schools, there's no shopping, there's no facilities, more driving versus more intensification. And that's sort of what the largest kind of hit on, but said it differently, but I'm in agreement with them. I don't know why we're doing this now when we should be, in my mind, should be waiting until we've got a little more planning into, or perhaps perhaps a little more knowledge into that climate change aspect. And the fact that it's, we're relying on pretty current numbers being only 2 years old. As we go into the next official plan round, we'd be extending 25 years in any matter. So I'm just kind of surprised that we'd be spending it now, and I'm not sure I can support it, but thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Boddy. And Councillor Potter, you're next.
I actually had the same issue when I first looked at this, but I thought so many things are changing, and they're changing so fast that I don't think it's a mistake for us to take a look at these issues now. And growth, as Mayor Swever pointed out, we are aware that we may have a significant round of growth, more than we expected, and what we expected was already big enough. That's going to have a lot of implications, and we have a lot of separate settlement areas around our town, and I'm sure some of the other communities in Grey do as well. How are we going to service them with infrastructure? What are going to be the implications for things like drainage? What is the post-COVID world going to be like? And the climate change issue is awfully important. And that, for us, that falls into the drainage, one of the big drainage issues that we have to deal with, being at the bottom of the escarpment. So I don't think it is out of place for us to go ahead and at least start this process. I hope it will be a living document that will be reviewed pretty constantly, because I think to say that we can set the rules for the next 25 years now might be a little bit too optimistic, but at least we can get some of the parameters in place and start to get some understanding of what we might be looking at. But I do agree that I don't think we can really figure this out right now. I think it's going to take a little bit of time.
Okay, thank you for Councillor Potter for that. Any other comments, discussion points on this from county councillors? Sorry, Councillor Hicks, Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I think the province, frankly, needs to be congratulated for listening a bit, because they've moved from this 20 to 25 year horizon. Quite frankly, I think we should be looking at 30 to 40 years. But it's good that we're moving from 20 to 25 years. And yes, we do need the upper tier to get its act together so that the lower tiers can conform with the upper tier. So the update is absolutely necessary. Councillor Soever made a very good point about the COVID environment and knowing that impact. But these studies are really just a snapshot. It's a picture of what we know at the time. And it is indeed a living document, and it will be necessary for us to constantly be looking at perhaps doing updates and treating it like that, like a living document. I think that the report proposes consultation with the lower tier municipalities. And I know that various municipalities have been doing various things, so it'll be good for the county to benefit from the work that's being done by the lower tier. So the consultation is a very good recommendation. I would make a point that the report speaks of the fact that we will not be addressing boundary issues as part of this process, but as a result of this process, it may necessitate some municipalities having discussions around boundary reviews. In the course of that, the report talks about the need for comprehensive reviews, and I would just make the point that we were very careful during the discussions around our official plan to say comprehensive review or an updated comprehensive reviews, because some municipalities have had fairly recent comprehensive reviews. One last thing, and I know that I had some conversation with staff this morning about this, is just to mention, is my understanding that the consultants will be addressing the issue of allocation. So not just the numbers, but some recommendations and input from every lower tier municipality around allocation as a result of those updated numbers. Those are my comments, Mr. Warden.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Councillor Hicks. A lot of good discussion. Any further discussion points?
Warden, Randy, I believe, is going to speak to this, and then Councillor O'Leary has a question as well.
Okay, so go ahead, Randy, and then I'll go to Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Warden McQueen. Yeah, just some great comments, great discussion with respect to this report. In terms of the question with respect to why now, the way staff perceive this is an interim update, growth study update, and really it's to take advantage of, as Scott mentioned, the increase in the growth horizon from the 20 years to 25 years, and part of that is for two factors. One is, as Scott mentioned, there's several municipalities that are currently in the process of municipal official plan reviews, and part of that is right now, based on discussions with the province, as part of those OP reviews, they'd be bound by the current growth horizon that's in our official plan, which only goes to 2038. So by going to 25 years, it would actually increase our growth projections and allocations for an additional 7 years. And we know that some municipalities, as part of their work, are looking at the potential for, is there a need for additional lands to be added to settlement areas in order to be able to plan appropriately for the growth and development. And we're talking our primary settlement areas. We're talking about our fully serviced settlement areas in terms of looking at any potential expansions for those. The second part is in terms of why now. We have a development charge update review that's scheduled for 2021. And so it'll be really critical as part of that to have the most current growth study numbers and growth projections numbers in order to factor that in as part of the analysis for a development charge review. We know that 2018 normally would be fine in terms of a DC review, but having the most current up-to-date information as part of that DC review will be critical to assess what growth-related projects we need to account for and plan for. Not only for the next 25 years, but for infrastructure-related projects even beyond that. So having some updated growth projection numbers will be very beneficial for that exercise as well. And some great points in terms of consultation and the point that Councillor Hicks indicated with respect to the importance of allocation and consulting with local municipalities. That's going to be a key critical component of this. Will be consultation with local municipalities to see what's actually happening on the ground, just to get some input in terms of what Councillor Suever indicated. What do they see happening as a result of a post-pandemic period? Some great comments in terms of, we were already seeing a trend for people choosing more to a place to live versus where their actual job is located. And I think even in a post-pandemic world, we're going to see more of that trend just continue to increase as employers allow for more flexibility to work from home. And so that's where stressing the importance of broadband and internet connectivity is going to be critical going forward in order to help support that, because we think that Grey County is a great place to live. And we think that, as a result of that, people are going to choose to live in places like Grey County in a post-pandemic world. So that's something that we definitely want to have discussions with the consultant, definitely have discussions with the local municipalities as a factor in. But as I mentioned, this is an interim growth update. We also are planning for a full growth study update in 2023. And part of that is we'll have the census data from 2021, which will give us some further information, and we'll have a better indication of where we're going in a post-pandemic world from a growth and development perspective. So that'll be planned in 2023 is what our current capital plan proposes. So this is an interim update, again, for two factors. One, to support some municipal OP reviews that are currently underway or are currently planned in the next year or two. And then the next one is a development charge background study update, which we're planning in 2021.
Okay, thanks, Randy. And I think Councillor Leary, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Randy, I'm just thinking about money here, like $25,000. Are you going to be asking with things changing as fast as they are you going to be asking for another $25,000 in 2 or 3 years' time? And rather than give reasons as to why now, give me the reason coming the other way. What is the downside of waiting for 4 years?
Okay, that's a question to you, Randy. Go ahead.
Great question. And I think the downside again is with several municipalities planning to do official plan reviews and updates, again, they would be hampered by our current growth projections, which are only to 2038. So to be able to take advantage of the additional 7 years that we'd be adding from our growth projections and allocations, it just allows for us to overall throughout Grey County, both from a county level and a local municipal level, to be able to account and plan for our communities in terms of how we need to grow and thrive over the next 25 years versus 18 years, which is what they would be hampered by. And I know it sounds not great, but we think it'll actually make a big difference in terms of overall growth projections and allocations throughout the county. And like I said, it's important to have those numbers for a development charge review. That's a key one for us. We really want to have a better sense of what's going to happen over the next 25 years and 25 plus years to be able to plan for what growth related infrastructure projects that we need to account for in our DC background study.
Okay.
And
thank you
if
for
I
that,
can
Randy.
I can add, Mr. Warden.
Yep, go ahead, CEO.
The other piece of, aligned with the development charges discussion is the community benefits charge discussion, which is a brand new tool. And I think the more information that we can get and bring to this table for you to consider and for us as staff to be able to model means that we'll be able to make, the absolute best use of these tools that we've been provided, and ensuring that either we're not leaving things on the table that we shouldn't and shortchanging our residents, or conversely, taking more than we should or that we actually need to have right now. So we're just really trying to get this right and collect all the information that we can. And you'll notice that the resources to do this work are coming from a reserve, and it is a reserve that we've had for a little while. And so rather than look for new resources, we thought it was most prudent to repurpose a reserve that we have had and don't see as critical a need for at this time.
Okay, thank you, CAO. Any other comments, questions?
Yes, Mr. Warden.
Who do we got? I'm looking at my screen. I got a voice here. Who? Sorry, who?
Councillor Robinson.
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Robinson. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. I just want to make it clear that I can support this resolution because it's looking at growth management data and strategy that can assist our lower tiers. So within our lower tiers, as certainly that's been discussed, that some of the lower tiers are doing official plan reviews, and also their accompanying zoning amendment bylaws. But keep in mind that each of our lower tiers have a uniqueness. So if this strategy can support our lower tiers, specifically in terms on how they are trying to enhance their specific municipality, I can support it. If it's going beyond that scope in terms of looking at boundary issues, that is something that I am not looking at in the discussion for this strategy. So I just want to make it clear that I can support it in terms of the necessity for gathering the data for DCs, and also supporting and being complementary to official plan reviews that are being done at the local level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Robinson. I don't know if Scott or Randy have any comments there at all, or Okay.
Yeah, just to, yeah, so as Scott indicated, it's just looking at the projections and allocations. If it points to a need for any additional settlement area lands to be added, that will be done through a separate exercise as part of a comprehensive review or updated comprehensive review, as Councillor Hicks indicated, through either an OP review, which would trigger a separate official plan amendments and other things of that nature. So at this stage, we're just looking at the projections and allocation numbers.
Okay, thanks for that clarity.
Having the consultant, because there are municipalities that are unique. So making sure that that is factored in as part of the overall review by the consultant will be important for sure.
Thanks for the clarity, and I just need to make sure that that message is clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further comments or questions from county councillors? Just a comment for myself to Randy and Scott. I know a few years back we were going through the Markdale Beavercrest School, and it seemed to be at that time the school board didn't have the updated numbers with regards to growth projections and stuff. So by going through this exercise and updating, is that circulated or shared with the school board system? Because that's all hand in hand, as Mayor Alar said, that there's got 6 or 7 families that are looking with kids coming into this area, because it seemed to be they were missing that mark of their growth compared to what was happening. And so I don't know if you have any comment there.
Yeah, I think they'll be a key partner to engage as part of this process. We flagged that as part of our strategic plan work in terms of trying to engage a wide variety of partners and stakeholders when we're looking at subjects like this, because having the school boards with different growth projection numbers versus what we're projecting or allocating just doesn't work. So if we have the ability to share, and we've had those discussions with school boards in the past, and they're definitely willing to work together and look at that when we're doing these reviews. So I think they'll be a key stakeholder for sure with respect to this review.
And certainly demographics and age cohorts, and as we have the aging baby boomers moving forward the next 20 years, that has maybe a factor as well, right? And where people are coming. So, okay, we'll move on here. So again, that was moved by Councillor Patterson, second by Councillor Potter. Sorry,
if I might, Mr. Warden.
Go ahead.
Thank you. You know, I'm sitting here listening to the discussion, and it strikes me that I wonder what would it look like if we went back. I don't know how long we've been doing these growth management studies, but it'd be interesting to look back even 10 years and see how well are we hitting the targets here, or are we just, or would get better value to just throwing a dart at the wall and say, yeah, there's our growth management. You know, Randy's laughing because, you know, sometimes we'll get not too bad, but other times we're wildly wrong in our projections. So, you know, we get all tied up in knots trying to figure out what's going to happen in the next, well, whenever 2038 is, or 45 or whatever, when really we're just guessing.
Well, don't worry.
There's all kinds of variables that go into this.
Don't worry, Brian, you and I'll still be farming. And and the other side is a perfect example is Southgate. Look at the growth that you have had that wasn't projected. And, you know, good on you guys, you know, there it is. And I think that was one example that I remember with the school board is they didn't see that coming. And another sector is the Mennonite population. There's a whole different sector with different kind of growth numbers, you know, and, you know, that would not have been.
To be honest, we saw the growth coming, but nobody believed us.
I'll give you that. I will give you that. Okay. I don't know, Randy, do you have any comments to throwing the dart versus an IC Mayor Alar?
Yeah. I think as Councillor Hicks indicated, it is a point in time, obviously, in terms of you know, using the best data and best information that we have at that time, and things change, and that's why we need to regularly monitor this. You know, I think it's important to continue to work with local municipalities, monitoring building permit activity, what's happening on the ground from a development application perspective. So even if we get these snapshot in time, which we're required to do based on provincial policy, and include in our official plan and use those numbers as part of our overall planning for growth, we can't lose sight of the fact that things change. and we need to continually monitor and update these growth numbers and projections and allocations as we go, because things like what we've seen in Dundalk and other factors, or when we went through a recession period, our growth projection numbers were way high at that time. So things change, and post-pandemic world, yeah, that's going to change as well. But utilizing, I guess, the best data and information that we have available during this period, and getting that information from local municipalities and others of what's happening on the ground and what they anticipate happening on the ground will be a key factor in this review, as well as future reviews as well.
Okay, thanks, Randy. Mayor Swerver?
Yes, Councillor Milne brings up a very good point. And I think this time it's even going to be more challenging, particularly at this point in time when, the pandemic has yet to run its course, particularly south of the border, and that will have a huge impact on the economy. So, I'm kind of leery of rushing to start this right now, because I don't think this is an optimal time to gather data. And, I think, as Randy pointed out, we've had challenges before, and we don't really know what the next year is going to bring. And I think there's potentially a bigger range of outcomes than normal. Like recessions come pretty regularly. We know that we'll have one every 10 years kind of thing. But in this case, depending on what happens with COVID and how people respond to that, where they choose to live, how they choose to live, these are huge unknowns at this point in time. So we may be just, spending a lot of money here to come up with information, which we find, we don't really know how growth is going to happen and where it's going to happen. And, the future right now is very uncertain. So trying to predict a future is difficult, even when we're in normal times. But when we're in these times, it's pretty much impossible, I think. And, I think, I'm a data guy and I love data, but as you guys know, but it's, at this point, I'm not sure that we can collect anything of value at this point in time.
Okay, well, I guess I go to you, Randy. Is it a consideration that County Council defer this for 6 months just to see where we shake this out and still bring it back, in the sense of, I'm getting, as you're hearing, some conflicting whether we should move forward because of what's happening? Should we wait? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess, looking at what we have now to factor into things like official plan reviews, to factor in for the development charge background study, it's probably less of an update of where we think we're likely going to be going. And that's based on the 2018 growth managed study numbers, which wouldn't have even factored anything with respect to pandemic related matters, or what's been happening on the ground, or what we think could be happening on the ground. And I think there's value in still moving forward with this interim update. I think it'll give us some further information that we'll need to factor in to our DC background study. And like I said, we need to regularly monitor this as we go along. It'll be a point in time, but an important point in time that we need at this stage for those official plan reviews that are currently underway or planned, as well as our DC background study. So I think it's, as staff, we're still wanting to support, I guess, have council support in terms of moving forward with this interim update. But I totally understand, some of the comments that councillors are coming from, and hopefully as once we engage the consultant, we're probably looking at a period of a few months anyways to complete this. We'll maybe have some data and information to see what is happening on the ground from a development perspective. We're still receiving new applications, so we're not seeing a slowdown whatsoever. And it'll be great to, and from what I'm hearing from other local municipalities, it's similar. But we'll see how we go over the next 2-3 months while we engage this consultant, if council supports this, to see if that has changed at all. So we'll make sure that, you know, we're trying to factor in, again, the best data and information that we have to give us the best snapshot in time. And then, like I said, the importance of regularly monitoring this going forward will be key. And at that time, if we see that there's a need to look at that, we'll take another look at it. We have some other data analysis supports in-house, and we can continue to monitor that with those supports with our planning data analysis coordinator as well. So I guess those are staff comments, I guess, at this time.
Mr. Warden?
Yes,
It's
go ahead.
Christine
Councillor
Robinson. Thank you. At the appropriate time, I would be pleased to put a motion forward to defer for consideration of this item for 1 year. Bring it back. We're in a pandemic. I've been listening to my colleagues in terms of justification for moving ahead and also deferring this type of consideration. So at the appropriate time, I would move a deferral, and I'd be looking for a seconder, please.
Okay, so just before I entertain, I know deferrals take precedence over motions that are on the floor. Is there any new business that hasn't been discussed from county councillors that was to be raised at this time with regards to the motion that's on the floor? Any new business? Okay, procedurally then, through Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk, a motion is being indicated to defer. Do we have a seconder for that deferral?
I'll second it, Mr. Warden.
So that's Councillor Soever. There is a debate on deferral, I understand, from procedurally. So it's taken precedence now. We have a motion on the floor for deferral. Discussion.
We see Councillor Potter.
Councillor Potter.
And Councillor Desai as well.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm okay with deferring this because I do think that there are things to look at. I wonder if we could use that time, though, to look, as Councillor Robinson mentioned earlier, about the scope of what we'd be doing with this. And could we use some of that time to look at what the scope should be? Because we all are aware that sometimes these studies come back to us, and if we look at them 10 years down the line, they're wildly inaccurate, and they're probably looked at things that they shouldn't have, and that's where they go astray. So I'm wondering if we could use the year to review what the scope should be, what we should be looking at. There are things that we really need to know. Rural broadband is certainly one of them, but drainage, infrastructure of all kinds. So I wonder if we could do that, and that would give us some time to make it maybe a more sensible or more useful in the long term.
So procedurally, I think if the deferral is carried, it would come back as indicated in the motion. But Randy, do you have any comments there?
No, nothing further to add at this time. I don't
so
any further comments.
I would add, Mr. Warden, if I may, though, that again, I will make the point that the growth management study underpins the development charges background study, and there are aspects of a growth study that need to be looked at and assessed in order to be able to be useful in supporting the background study. So I think when you if you look across the province, you would find that the structure of a growth management study has, between one jurisdiction and the next, has a lot of consistency and a lot of similarities. I don't want to discount Councillor Potter's points. I think that we can always ensure that these things are structured in a way that have capture the unique circumstances that we find ourselves in. But for the most part, a growth management study is a structured document, and so we don't have complete carte blanche to be able to make it however we want it to be.
Okay, thank you, Madam CEO. there's nothing stopping if there was a particular area that we wanted information, a report could come forward that we need information around a certain area as well. So
We can always do that.
Yeah.
At any time, yes.
Okay. Follow up on that, Councillor Potter, or anything? No. Okay. Any other discussion on the deferral?
There was Councillor Desai and Councillor
yes.
Donnelly.
Sorry, Councillor Desai, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. It's increasingly looking like Councillor O'Leary is not going to make the noon-hour tea time. But to bring it to the point of debate, I think a one-year deferral, I think any deferral right now is long. As the director of planning has already pointed out, that there's a process that happens going forward even if we approve the motion as it is today. There is a process on finding someone to do the study and so on, which could take about 6 months. So if we defer debate on this today to a year from now, then the study isn't starting for at least 18 months from now. So we're already behind the 8 ball. Just because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I would argue we're not even in the middle of a pandemic, we're towards the end of it from how things are starting to open up. We're past the middle. We can't bring everything grinding down to a halt. Like, it's been 3-4 months now. The world moves on. Despite the pandemic, real estate transactions are still happening. They were classified as essential at the beginning of the pandemic. People are still moving around. In Grey County itself, I believe it was the last month, the price of real estate went up 4%. Compare that to Toronto, where the price of real estate went down. So people are moving up, and I think we need to move on this sooner rather than later. So I struggle to agree or to even really see the rationale of deferring the study at all, because we know that even if we approve the study today, it's going to be about 6 months before the study gets underway. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you, Councillor Desai. And Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk, who was the next person?
Councillor Burley.
Councillor Burley. Go ahead, Councillor Burley.
Thank you. Great discussion on the motion, but I'm going to ask for a recorded vote on the revised motion.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a recorded vote on the deferral?
Yes.
Okay. Before we go there, is there any other comments before we go to recorded vote? Selwyn Hicks, Councillor Hicks, Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I would echo the comments of Councillor Desai. The fact that there is an updated provincial policy statement alone is justification for the upper tier to get its act together so that the lower tiers can do this work. So the growth management study is pivotal to that. And it underpins many other things that need to happen. So we need to get on with this. There's no absolute perfect time. I align this to making a decision about upgrading your phone. When is the right time to upgrade your phone? Because, I'm constantly thinking, geez, I'd love to have that new phone, but the minute I get that, they're going to come out with the 11 or the 12, and it's going to have these features, and, maybe I hold off just a little bit. At some point, you have to get on with it. And I think that, many very good points have been made about issues that could be at play or that are still developing, is still ongoing, and we can respond to that. But again, it's a snapshot in time. It's a living document, and we will be constantly looking at it in light of developments that come forward. So for those reasons, I will not be supporting the motion to defer.
Okay. All right. Any further comments before we go to a recorded vote?
Mr. Warden?
Councillor Robinson.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you as the mover of the deferral. I really see the snapshot in time being more relevant within in the year's time. Certainly, there is a process in place, and should this deferral go through, and I look to my county colleagues for support of that, that should it go through, that process can, and it is approved for the study in 1 year's time, that process will then kick in terms of the RFP for consultants and the data collection. And I'm suggesting that the data may be more relevant within that year's time. I think it's most valid that we wait. Thank you.
Mr.
Okay.
Ward.
Sorry, go ahead.
One thing to remind council to be mindful of is the term of this council. And as those timelines march on, we have 2 years left and essentially a little better than 18 months of this council before there's the potential of being in a lame duck position. So that's just one other fact to consider. If this council wishes to consider work, we need to make sure that that work will be completed in a time frame that will allow for that.
Oh, Madam CEO, I thought in that motion or that information that came out of the province that they're going to cancel the 2022 municipal election. Just kidding. Just kidding. So thank you very much for that. That is valuable information in the sense of the working time of county councillors. And I guess that's why I only raised the part of if a 1 year deferral versus a 6 month deferral, is that something that maybe is an option as well. So, but the motion that's on the floor is for 1 year. So Randy, do you wish to make a comment?
Yeah, just further to, I think, Kim's comments with respect to previously regarding the importance of having the growth data for the development charges background study update. Normally we try to start that process fairly early in the process, and the bylaw is set to expire in January 1st of 2022. So we try to at least get that process started in the spring of the year prior, which would be 2021. So my only concern with respect to a year deferral is that we wouldn't have that growth projection information updated when we start that process. And that's, like I said, a key piece of why we're requesting this, and a key piece of that process. To have the most up-to-date data with respect to the development charges background study. So I just wanted to provide that information to council as part of their deliberations and discussions with respect to this piece.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Randy. Any further new information before we go to, okay, Councillor Desai.
And Councillor Soever as well, please.
Soever, okay, Desai and Soever.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. So from what Randy has just said, if we want to start the process on the development charges by spring of 2021, we want to have the updated growth projections before that. And so really, even a 6 month deferral wouldn't be ideal. So I cannot support a deferral at all on this. Really, it's like Councillor Hicks said, it's like the phone. When do you upgrade? At some point, you've got to make the decision, and I think we need to make a decision now. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Soever.
Yes, and no, I can understand all the arguments, and you know the desire to meet the process is great, but you know. The thing is, are we going to be able to get good data, which, you know, so we're going to use this data for our development charges. So if we get bad data now, we'll get those wrong too. So, you know, this cascades all the way down. It's kind of like you're planning an addition to your house and you're not sure whether you're going to have one child or triplets. And so let's go ahead and build the whole house and then figure out, you know, how many rooms we need. You know, it's, you know, I think that perhaps, and I don't know how the mover will feel, but I'm happy to have staff bring a report in 6 months and make an argument for why they can get good data at that point, because I think right now, I think the odds of getting good data that's going to be reliable is is non-existent at this point. So, you know, we can go ahead and do all this and we can finish all the paperwork, but will the data be good? And will it be useful? And then if we build our development charges on that, will that be valid? And will we have enough money in the future? So, you know, I'm willing to, you know, move a friendly amendment that, you know, staff come back in 6 months with an update report explaining why they feel they can now get good data.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Thank you for that, Mayor Weber. So I'm gonna go back to the mover, Councillor Robinson. Any thoughts on the comments that have been made to your motion?
Sure. Certainly, and I can certainly support that. It's friendly, and but I would absolutely like the vote to be taken on it. So thank you, Mr. Warden.
Okay, so from the seconder, are you support of that as well, of a 6-month friendly amendment?
I'm the seconder, so.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're okay with that, so, okay. Just hang on, before I go to Councillor Desai, Madam Clerk, what do you need process here if the mover and seconder supports the 6 months?
So I just like to confirm that this is a deferral for 6 months and that staff will bring the report back at that time.
Or bring
Is that
back
the intention?
Bring back a report, I think is referred to.
Is it
report?
if it's a deferral for 6 months, this specific report will come back. If you'd like a different report, probably the best thing to do is to bring forward a motion to request that, a separate motion.
Or could it read to bring back an updated report at that time? I don't know. It's the mover and seconder's motion, so I'm not going to say.
No, Mr. Warden, I'm just treating it as a friendly amendment, and you know, I'm also seeing that we haven't made the decision on transit yet. We're waiting with regard to COVID, so I'm seeing this as a parallel item. I would very much like, as soon as the seconder confirms that, could you possibly call the vote on this, please?
Okay, so Madam Clerk, the mover and seconder are okay with a 6-month change here. Okay.
Okay.
So I've been requested to call the vote. Is there anything that's burning here that needs to be discussed? Councillor Desai, make it quick.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. One for staff. Do we think we can get good data? I would imagine that if staff felt that we couldn't get good data, that we wouldn't be seeing this report right now, or we would be seeing this report with a caveat in it saying, we don't think we can get good data, but there's a process that needs to happen, and here's why this report is coming forward. 2, I'd like to know on, well, I guess the second one has been answered through the debate. So yeah, my question is to staff. Do we think we can get good data?
Randy, good data, or current data. Two different things.
Based on my previous comments, you know, the data that we'd be using for official plan review updates and the DC background study would be based on the data that we currently have now, which is to 2038. And so that doesn't, as I mentioned, factor in anything with respect to what's happened the last two years and a bit, as well as doesn't factor into anything that we think could happen with respect to the pandemic, as well as any information that we could gather as part of the analysis of what we're seeing happening on the ground with consultation with local municipalities. So I guess from a staff perspective, I guess we'd be better to have 2045 growth projection information with some of those information and pieces factored in versus using 2038 data that doesn't factor in any of those factors.
Okay. So I'm going to then, Madam Clerk, to proceed with the recorder vote, please.
So this is a recorded vote on the 6-month deferral. Councillor Mackey, sorry?
So just for clarity, a yes means you support the deferral.
Right. Councillor Mackey?
No.
Sorry, I need to adjust my tray here. Councillor Gamble?
No.
Councillor Burley?
Against.
Counselor Carlton,
No.
Warden McQueen,
Yes.
Counselor Desai,
No.
Counselor Patterson,
No.
Counselor Hicks,
Nay.
Counselor Clumpus,
No.
Counselor Keaveney,
No.
Counselor Body,
No.
Counselor O'Leary,
Opposed.
Counselor Woodbury,
No.
Counselor Milne,
No.
Counselor Soever,
Yes.
Counselor Potter,
No.
Counselor Robinson,
Yes.
Counselor Hutchinson.
Yes.
Motion is lost 62-23.
Okay, thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. And so the original motion is now has Councillor Patterson and Councillor Potter. Any further discussions on that motion? Any opposed to that motion? That is carried. Okay, thank you for that. There was a request I had for a 10-minute break. Is that right, Councillor Desai?
Yes, please, Mr. Warden.
All right, well, we got to hurry up because Councillor O'Leary wants to get to that golf course. So it's 11:26. Do you want to come back at 11:30, 11:40, 11:35?
11:35, I'm good, Mr. Warden.
Okay, 11:35. Okay, there you are. Thanks, Madam Deputy Clerk. Hello, everyone. Are we all coming back? Oh, hang on. I turned my camera around. How do I turn my, oh, there we are. So it looks like, Scott, you have the next one.
Yes, thanks, Warden McQueen. So what we have before us is a proposed plan of subdivision in
just hang on. I don't know if we
Sorry.
have everybody back here. Just sorry. I just wanted to make sure you're in the queue. How are we doing out, Madam Deputy Clerk? How are we making it with everyone? Everybody, I see a few missing yet, but
I'm back.
I think there's a song about you're back.
Back streets back. All right.
There you are. There we are.
Please, please.
I knew you knew that one. You tried to make
I
me.
just heard Kiri groaning upstairs. So
Wait, I hear order. I hear order. So we better get her back to order here. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Desai. Okay. I see most people coming back. I see the Deputy Warden is still not back. I think everybody else is. So in the sense of time, and Councillor O'Leary wants to get out to that Sunshine Court, I think we'll move ahead. And Scott, you have the next report. And so on that report, we have PDRCW 2920, and it's moved by Councillor Keaveney and Councillor Woodbury. And Scott, you're going to take this one on, and this is with regards to Peaks Meadow final report. Scott.
Great, thanks, Warden McQueen. I am just going to try to share my screen here just to get everybody a picture of the subject lands here. Can everybody see the map that's up on the screen now?
It's on my screen, Scott, so I presume it is.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So what we have before us is a proposal for a plan of subdivision in the Camperdown areas, and Camperdown area, and you'll see on the screen the subject lands are highlighted in yellow. They're looking at proposing approximately 16 new lots here. This was upped from the original proposal of 12 lots, but after discussions with town and county staff and the proponent, this number was increased to 16 to better align with both county and town official plan policies. The subject lands are 2.3 hectares in size. The 16 new lots would gain access off of the existing Dorothy Drive. And this is part of a original plan of subdivision that was approved in the year 2006 by the Ontario Municipal Board. And at that time, this block of land was contemplated for 65 residential units. In discussions that have happened since then, it's been determined that 65 was probably a little high on this one. And as such, we have the proposal for us today at 16 units. The lands are designated for growth in both the county and town plans. And a zoning bylaw amendment that was associated with this plan of subdivision application has just recently been passed by Town of Blue Mountains Council. As you can see on the attached photo, the lands to the north and west are already in the process of being developed with subdivisions. Further west, there is, of course, the golf course. And the lands to the south and east of the proposed development block here are the escarpment slope, and those lands have been dedicated to the Town of Blue Mountains. So we won't see any further development south or east of this development in that regard. We did go through the regular public process on this development. The agency comments received were generally supportive, subject to the draft plan conditions attached to the report. There were some public comments with respect to impact on the environment and impact on the escarpment. There were also some other public comments to suggest that this was an improved proposal from the 60 lands, and we have further inquiries about when these units will be for sale. With respect to the comments regarding the impact on both the escarpment and the natural environment, there was an environmental impact study done in support of this development. That study was reviewed by staff from the Niagara Escarpment Commission, the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority, town staff, and county staff. As part of one of the draft plan conditions, there will be a requirement for a tree preservation and retention plan. And staff feel, between the comments from the agencies and our own opinions, that these 16 houses won't have an undue impact on either the local environment or the escarpment in that regard. And as I noted, the escarpment slope is protected based on being owned by the town. As such, staff are recommending draft approval on this one, subject to the conditions, as we believe the development has regard for matters of provincial interest under the Planning Act. It is consistent with the Provincial Policy Statement 2020. It's not in conflict with the Niagara Escarpment Plan, and it conforms to both the town and county official plans. That's all I have at this stage, but certainly be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thanks, Scott. And you still have the screen up there, so I'm going to have to go by your voice or there we are. Any comments or questions with regards to the Peaks Meadows final report? All right, so I hear none. Any opposed to this motion? Hearing none, that is carried. Thanks, Scott. And moving on then to our next report, CDR CW 0720, 10-year housing and homeless plan and year in review. And that's moved by Councillor Robinson, and Councillor Carlton has seconded that motion. And I think Anne-Marie, you're going to speak to this report.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. This is the annual report that we provide for our housing and homelessness plan. This report includes the timeline from April of 2019 to March 2020. It looks at the progress that we've made so far in our housing and homelessness plan, and to do with the funding that we received from our investment in affordable housing program and our CHIBI program, our community homelessness program. So when we look at highlights, the creating more affordable housing, we had 15 units of mixed affordable and market rent apartment that was completed in Durham. We've set the groundwork for 59 new rentals to be constructed in phase 3 of Ottawa Heights, which will be starting shortly. We have approved some rent subsidies for the Canadian Mental Health Association to provide options for some of their clients. And we were able to provide 10 households down payments for our for our home ownership program. In preserving our existing stock, we did provide $212,000 through our Ontario Renovates program to residents for minor repairs to their house. We, of course, are also looking at preserving our own housing with our 10-year capital plan and commitment to sustain and improve our own community housing, focusing on energy efficiency, safety, and renewal. As part of the chronic homelessness, we have increased our emergency line to 24 hours a day, working with a new partner of 211. We continue to work with Y Housing for support and outreach for people that are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And we supported the Giwi project through the Muikudong Native Culture Center. And this project aimed to increase awareness in the community with regards to service delivery agencies. And we've also provided some supportive housing. We've partnered with Canadian Mental Health Association to provide some outreach services to our own tenants. So we have our own worker now for our own housing. We've supported Safe and Sound with some funding towards their transitional housing. And of course, we provided funds through our Community Enhancement Fund, which provides small grants to community programs to provide our local partners that are in our community that are providing services for those that are experiencing homelessness. And we continue to support 70 residents on a monthly basis with transitional housing throughout Grey County through our 5 housing with support related support program. We have 5 providers. Next steps, we are looking at and working with Canadian Mental Health Association to focus on bringing in a by name list. So it's not actually a list, it's called a list, but what it is it is a opening for anyone. So if someone is at the hospital and they're experiencing homelessness, if they're at the Y, another community partner, then they are filtered to this one person who then will provide an assessment, figure out their needs, and then reach out to the community supports that are available for them. So this is another step as to what we've been working towards with Canadian Mental Health Association, and we're hoping to have someone hired for that by September. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Questions from county councillors? Speak up if you have any.
I have one, Mr. Warden.
Go ahead, Councillor Millen.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Anne-Marie. In regards to the community support programs, the Community Enhancement Fund, is there a requirement to have the money spent by a certain period of time? And if there is there any indication, because a lot of these programs have been, stopped for the pandemic, is there a provision to extend the timeline so that, the community groups can have the full benefit of the funds that are provided?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. We do have a timeline of a year. We ask for reporting, but if the money is not completely spent, then we just ask for a plan on how it would be spent in the future. So there are provisions for that. So we would never be clawing back my funds, not when they're needed.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I just wish you were working for the bank that I use. I could use the same kind of provisions, but thank you.
Keep at it, Councillor Millen. Keep at it. Any other questions to Anne-Marie?
Councillor Mackey had a question.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Warden McQueen. Thanks, Anne-Marie, for the update. Can you just, as far as the emergency 24-hour shelter that's in place, the new staff person, they will help people that utilize that service. Well, first of all, can you just expand upon what that service looks like, how it's accessed? And then secondly, the new staff person, they will help someone utilizing that service navigate the system, will they? Is that my understanding?
So right now, the way it's set up is it's set up through the Y. And so if you are in need of housing from 8:30 to 4:30, then you can visit the Y and there will be somebody there. If it occurs after hours, then the phone lines and 211 are well aware of the program, and they can go ahead and set someone up with a emergency housing that night, and the Y will follow up that morning. So there's no gap in service for someone having to wait until morning for emergency housing. Police are all well aware of the program too and also participate. So if police are called or become aware of someone who needs housing, then that is available. As for what this person will be doing, this person is specifically working. So we're looking at people that are experiencing homelessness so it's a chronic condition. So it's chronic homelessness. So it's not someone that's just that episodic homelessness that we often see through the Y. So this would be somebody that maybe has visited the hospital a few times, and they are able to now determine that this person needs assistance. So they will need more than housing. They're probably going to need mental health supports. They may need physical health supports. So that person would be doing an assessment to determine that need, and then they would be working with that. So that person will become that navigator. But it will be for people that are experiencing chronic homelessness.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Sounds like a position that's well needed.
Okay, thanks for your comments, Councillor Mackey. Any other comments from county councillors? Hearing none. Any opposed to this motion? That is carried. All right, moving forward then, we had one item that was pulled from our consent agenda, and that was with regards to the letter from Grey County Federation of Ag. And I think Councillor Robinson, you pulled that particular item. So I'll pass it over to you.
Yes, and thank you, and through you, Mr. Warden. So the correspondence is from
Excuse me,
Grey
Councillor
Federation.
Robinson. Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Could we just have a motion to put that on the floor?
Oh,
sorry. Councillor Robinson, are you putting that on the floor?
Sure.
Okay, do I need a seconder? I can't see everybody in my screen, so do I have a
Councillor
second?
Hutchinson.
Okay, Councillor Hutchinson. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Robinson. Thanks, Deputy Clerk. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. And through you, Mr. Warden, just to highlight that correspondence from the Grey Federation of Agriculture, they were looking at creating a task force to deal with local protein production and how it could potentially be processed locally and that processing capacity. I'm seeing a very clear dovetail into our newly established Grey County Agricultural Advisory Committee. And just looking forward to the terms of reference when they come forward from staff for Grey County Council consideration. The second part of the correspondence was requesting that Grey County take a lead in this matter. Certainly, I see that coming forward, either through the Grey County Agricultural Advisory Committee, but there's a couple other opportunities, and whether this could be addressed through the Western Wardens Caucus, Warden McQueen, or also as a delegation, whether it's through the Western Warden Caucus or through an overall AMO delegation. So just a few thoughts. Thank you.
Well, maybe I'll go back to Madam CAO. You and I have had some conversation with regards to this and a delegation request. I don't know if you want to speak to it.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. We have Grey County requested a delegation at AMO on a new slaughter facility and did that in collaboration with Bruce, Huron, and Perth. Western Wardens Caucus is supportive of that, and also Charlotte, the coordinator for Western Wardens, also put a delegation request in on their behalf as well. So I think between one group and another, we should be hearing something positive on that delegation request.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so so the direction here then, basically, the motion here is to receive this correspondence. You got some clarity, Councillor Robinson. And so is there any other discussion on this particular letter from County Council, sorry? Okay, anybody? Okay, so the motion's on the floor. It's moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Hutchinson. Any opposed to this resolution? Okay, that is carried. Thank you for that. Is there any other business of County Council? No other business? Are there any notice of motions? Okay, I hear none, and I have a motion that is moved by Councillor Burley and second by Councillor Woodbury that we adjourn, and that's even before lunchtime. So Councillor O'Leary might get to the golf course yet. I hear any opposed to that? That is carried. So everybody have a safe and enjoyable July. If you want it to rain, you got to go cut 100 acres of hay, and that'll make sure it rains. So anyway, you guys have a safe one and have a good golf game, Brian.